In just under 1 week, Amazon is removing the ability to download any ebooks that you have purchased from the content management section on the Amazon website. This means that any Kindle books that you buy in the future will be locked into the Amazon ecosystem, and you won't be able to download and manage them outside of Amazon. And this understandably has book lovers at arms because Amazon quietly did this behind the scenes and never made any announcements. It would have been nice to have received an email. I'm sure they could have sent an email at mass to anybody that's purchased a Kindle book, letting them know about this new rule. And so there are a few things at play here that I think we should address. As far as I know, this won't affect being able to send non-Amazon EPUBs to your Kindle to read on. So if you like using this device in order to read other EPUBs that you've bought from somewhere else, or managing your content system and PDFs and reading those on your Kindle, that should still all work. The other question is, how confident are you to bet on the future of Amazon and the books that you buy as digital copies? You know, many readers take pride in the ownership of the books that are in their library, and Amazon is taking this away with our digital libraries. That's one of the reasons that everybody is so upset about this change that's taking place. It's becoming even more apparent that you no longer have ownership over the books that you put on this device. So here's what I think. Buying a Kindle and any Kindle books is buying into Amazon's ecosystem. When you look at it this way, this change to no longer being able to download your ebooks off of Amazon is not as concerning. Yes, this device up front costs a lot more than the average physical book, unless it's your university textbooks. But when you look at the price up front and then compare that each ebook you buy on Amazon or anywhere else is about half the price that a physical copy would be, then you think about the fact that on Amazon and anywhere else, you also get these daily deals where you can get books for as low as a couple of dollars, 99 cents. Even some of the best sellers and most popular ones, when the publishers put those on sale, you can get those for just a couple of bucks. And so within a few months, if you're a heavy reader, this device very quickly pays for itself over those physical books that you may be devouring. The way I see it, people were really concerned when Apple switched to music subscriptions over owning or buying albums, but then people eventually got used to it and accepted that's the way things were. You either stuck with Apple Music or Spotify, or you switched away from those platforms if ownership was important to you. And I think that just like pirating music is a big problem, pirating books affects authors big time. That might be one of the reasons or part of why Amazon has decided to do this, so you can't strip the DRMs from your ebooks. Anyone that doesn't see the problem in this is probably more of a consumer than a creator. It takes an incredible amount of effort and energy to publish a book and write something that is great. And as we move into more and more of a digital world, I think it's important that authors shouldn't be concerned about people just stealing their work. They shouldn't have to worry about their ability to make a living evaporating with pirated content. So here's a couple more things to think about for yourself and whether this matters, and if it's time to quickly download all of your ebooks and save them in Calibre or save them offline somewhere so that you've always got them. Here's how I think about buying digital copies of books. First, for me, it's a way to acquire new information. So the highlights from any of the books that I'm reading go through Readwise and are saved somewhere else, like in Notion for me, in a personal knowledge management system. And so once I'm done with a book, I rarely ever go back to reading it. So for me, most books are not worth rereading, and even if I didn't have access in the future to a book, I'd still have the highlights and the notes that are most important to the meaningful takeaways that I really need or I'm going to use in the future. I experienced this, and I think I got over the fear of losing access to books when I used Scribe for quite a few years, because it's like a library on your iPad that allows you to borrow books and read them. And I would find that some books would no longer be available unscribed. So I got really used to exporting all of my highlights from there and making sure that those key points that were important to me were saved somewhere else, even if I didn't have access to the book anymore. The other thing is digital books are a way for me to relax and read fiction or pick out books that I want physical copies of for my library. But I've seen in the comments already on my channel, as well as other channels that have made videos talking about this new change with Amazon, that this is a big concern for a lot of people. So a couple of things to think about on, is this something you should be concerned about? As I mentioned, I know there are still audiophiles out there who love to buy their own albums and have their collection of music, or the same thing goes for people buying box sets of TV shows and movies to watch on their home cinema. But for most people, we've adapted and adjusted to accepting that Spotify and Netflix are the way that we consume those media these days. So if you're one of those people who is a collector and wants your digital copies of all of your ebooks, go now and download them from Amazon and make sure that you can store them offline before it's too late. But for me, I'm not too worried about it. There may be a few that I'll go through my library and pick out to download, make sure that I've stored a backup copy of. But the books that are really important to me, I will purchase physical copies of to reread anyway. As I talked about in this video recently, there are far too many books and far few time to be stuck reading mediocre books, and we've got to get better at not finishing books that aren't worth our time. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is, what does this look like for Kindle versus Kobo and other e-readers? And I think that a lot of people who are upset about this change are likely going to start leaving the Amazon ecosystem and looking at alternatives for their Kindle e-readers. Now, this paperweight that I've got, I'm still completely happy with and don't plan on making any changes for the next couple of years, as long as it keeps working fine for me, because I can still read other EPUBs and PDFs and send newsletters and other documents from Readwise to it. And I just really like using it. So I'm content for now, but when it comes to looking at upgrading or changing in the future, I'll definitely be looking at other options in addition to the Amazon ecosystem at that time to see if there's anything that is worth making the changeover to. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you concerned about this change from Amazon and trying to download all of your ebooks before the time runs out? And what do you think in general about the idea of ownership in the digital world, and particularly with your book collection? I appreciate you watching and taking the time to engage in this community, and I will see you in the next video.